My name is Jesse Ray. I'm 43 and a retired firefighter living on a 40-acre ranch outside of Austin, Texas. For years, I risked my life saving others, and at last, I saved enough to buy this piece of tranquility where I could raise horses, grow peaches, and wake to nothing but a bird that I stood there, fists clenched at my sides, staring at the tall metal fence that now completely encircled my ranch. A private property, no trespassing sign hung in the middle of the locked gate, taunting me with its smug presence. I blinked, disbelief settling in. My own ranch? Fenced off, locked up like I was a trespasser. I rattled the gate hard, expecting it to yield, but it didn't budge. Just 2 days. 2 days I had left to visit my mother in Houston after her surgery. Just 2 days. And now the HOA, the tyranny I had dealt with for months, had decided to lock me out of my own land. The memories of their constant harassment flooded my mind. The letters, the visits from smug board members who thought they were playing a game. I had ignored them all. What authority did they have over my property? None. That was what I'd thought, until today. But instead of screaming or calling lawyers, I smiled. I'd outplayed them. You see, while I'd been away, I did something they never saw coming. I bought the small strip of land the gate sat upon, the very piece that held the only key. Yeah, that's right. I owned it now. And what happened after that? Oh, the first year was bliss. Until, of course, the developer came along. The first letters from the Pine Brook Meadows HOA were comical, but as weeks rolled into months, their demands only grew bolder. They complained about every little thing. The color of my barn, the location of my tractor. I was astonished. How could they say anything? I was outside their jurisdiction. But their arrogance transformed into aggression when a man in a tiny badge named Donald Snipe came by, strutting as if he owned the world. He talked about creating a beautiful environment. I told him he could take his beautiful environment and shove it where the sun didn't shine. He didn't come back to my place, but it didn't stop the HOA. Instead, things escalated. I caught sight of strange flags near the fence line. Strangers with clipboards were near my boundary taking measurements, as if they had the right. The county clerk warned me, "Son, if the HOA's got their eyes on you, they'll try everything." And boy, he was right. I had to go check on my mom in Houston for a few days, and when I returned, bam, a shiny new fence wrapped around my entire property like a prison. The entrance was padlocked, the only access point controlled by the very people who wanted me gone. I furiously rattled the gate again, trying in vain to convince myself this was a nightmare. The only entrance to my own land was seized. My ranch turned into a vessel within their grand scheme. But I wasn't a man to back down. I called my real estate friend Donnell. "Find out who owns the land under that gate," I demanded. He laughed, thinking I was joking, but I wasn't. 3 days later, Donnell called back, his voice full of awe. "You're not going to believe this. The guy who sold that strip to the HOA has even more land. The right behind it connects straight to the road." Without hesitation, I wired the money, owning the only path that directed to the gate, the maintenance shed that held the lone key. Smugness surged within me. Those HOA bullies were in for surprise. I chose a day of a lavish HOA picnic to make my move. Arriving in my old truck, sign in hand, I hammered it into the ground outside the perimeter. Donald Snipe stormed over, eyes wide in disbelief. "What do you think you're doing?" "Just putting up a sign," I replied, handing him the deed to my newly acquired land. His face paled as I flicked the key from my pocket. "Guess I'll be popping into my ranch whenever I like." He was left standing there, stunned, like a deer in headlights. But that was just the beginning of my sweet revenge. You see, I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The next day, I woke to a stirring of excitement deep in my gut. This was the start of something big. The previous chaos had set the stage unwittingly for what would come next. I fueled my resolve as I sipped my morning coffee, watching the sun spread its warmth over the vast expanse of my property. But I had no idea the true storm was yet to come. The HOA had underestimated me, and their miscalculations would send them into a turbulent world of regret. Oh, they thought they had it all figured out, but I was just getting warmed up. I watched as Donald Snipe stood there, the deed shaking in his hand. The color drained from his face. "This isn't over, Jesse," he stammered, but the weight of shock had made his threats falter. I stepped past him, my mind racing with the possibilities. My ranch was just beyond those gates, and now I wielded the key. But there was no time to savor this small victory. I felt the tension shift in the air, as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath, anticipating the fallout. It wasn't long before a cloud of dust kicked up from the entrance. My heart raced as I caught sight of a convoy of SUVs and golf carts barreling towards me. Adrenaline surged through my veins. They were coming to confront me, and I had to be ready. The vehicles came to a screeching halt, and out stepped more HOA members, with Mr. Snipe at the front. "You think this is a game?" he yelled, fury flashing in his eyes. Behind him, a woman in a tailored suit stepped forward. Beatrice Langford, the HOA's legal counsel. "You're encroaching on private property," she snarled. I smirked, crossing my arms. "Whose property?" Because according to this, I gestured to the deed. I just acquired a land the gate sits on, and I'm within my rights to stand right here. The atmosphere crackled with tension as they exchanged bewildered looks. "This isn't just about land, Jesse," Snipe seethed, lowering his voice, attempting intimidation. "You've made some powerful enemies." For a brief moment, something sinister flickered in Beatrice's eyes, but I pressed on. "Maybe, but I don't back down easily. If you think this barrier could contain me, you're sorely mistaken." Before they could respond, a furious shout erupted from the crowd of HOA members that had gathered, a blend of disbelief and indignation. "What's he doing here?" someone yelled, and I turned to see several neighbors approaching, still in their picnic attire, disbelief and shock painted across their faces. "Folks, let me introduce you to the true face of Pine Brook Meadows," I called out, relishing the incredulous gasps. "This is the man who's tried to push me from my land, and this is a bar that attempted to trap me like an animal. This is private property." Snipe barked, but the crowd began murmuring, eyes darting between him and me, sensing the weight of the moment. "There's nothing private about stealing someone's land," I shot back, excitement coursing through me. I could feel the tides turning, the community rallying around me, confusion brewing on Snipe's face. Suddenly, the ground rumbled beneath us. The low drone of machinery grew louder, a bulldozer emerging from nowhere. My stomach sank. "What is this?" I muttered, incredulity mixing with anger. The driver, a man in a hard hat, grinned as if he had just won a lottery ticket. Before a single protest could reach my lips, he revved the engine, pushing the massive machine toward my fence line. "What the hell are you doing?" I roared, rushing toward the monstrous machine. But it was too late. It wouldn't stop. It was recklessly heading for the fence that had been my boundary, my little slice of freedom. Snipe's laughter floated through the chaos. "Good luck fighting that, Jesse. They are doing what needs to be done. Our plans for expansion won't be halted by a loose cannon. Get that thing out of here." I bellowed, desperation clashing with fury. I needed to think, but the sight of the bulldozer barreling toward my property sent waves of fear coursing through me. In a flash of inspiration, I sprinted back to the truck parked at the edge of my new land. Reaching into the cab, I pulled out my phone and dialed Donnell. "They're about to destroy my fence." I yelled before he could even greet me. "You know that bulldozer? You need to come out here. Fast." He didn't waste time asking questions. "On my way," he panted, and I hung up, racing back toward the chaos. The bulldozer came grinding to a halt inches from my fence, but the driver remained fixated on his clipboard, clearly under orders. I scanned the landscape, searching for a way to stop this madness when I spotted Beatrice, standing smugly among the HOA members, arms crossed, surveying my impending doom with glee. "Do you honestly think they'll push me out of my land?" I yelled at her, my voice shaking with intensity. "You think I'll let you tear down my sanctuary? My home? Hate to break it to you, Jesse, but the home you think you have is now an internal community project," she declared, those icy words hitting me like a knife. Fury ignited within me. This wasn't just an HOA battle. They had crossed a line. But the ground beneath my feet seemed to tremble not just from the bulldozer's engine. Inspired, I recalled my training and the stubborn nature that had kept this ranch alive for years. I turned to the approaching convoy. "You want to tear down my ranch?" You'll have to go through me. I'm not a man to be trifled with. And just like a dam breaking, my determination surged. I had my phone. I had a witness list, and I wouldn't hesitate to share everything with the county again. But first, I needed to make a public stand. With the bulldozer's engine still growling, I hiked up the tension in my voice. You think this is just about property? It's about community, about how far bullying can stretch. You've built your empire on deceit, and it's time it comes crashing down. Donald took a step forward, but a commotion broke out as my neighbors shifted uneasily, voices rising with doubt. What's really going on here? Some of them shouted, curiosity morphing into outrage. As their attention turned to the bulldozer and the HOA representatives, I saw my window of opportunity. Pulling out my phone, I started recording. Look at this chaos. They don't care about us. They just want our land. The moment became electric, and I knew I had to seize it. I angled the camera toward Snipe. Donald, tell them what's happening here. Tell them why you think you can dictate our lives. He opened his mouth, but stammered, words failing to form. As his resolve cracked under the scrutiny of the crowd, something shifted. The driver of the bulldozer hesitated, then cut the engine. I'm not getting in the middle of this, he said, stepping down, awkwardly glancing around. Smart choice. I shouted, relief flooding over me as the crowd reacted, grumbling and swarming around Snipe and Beatrice. Taking a step toward the group, I raised my phone in the air. Together, we can stand up to the HOA. They may see me as just one man, but it's time they realize we're an entire community. Cheers erupted from my neighbors, even those who had previously been silent, standing behind me like a wall of support. What are you going to do now, Donald? I pressed, invigorated by the sudden boost. Are you still going to push us around? Or are you going to face the very people you claim to protect? The crowd had drawn closer, a furious force as I backed him into a corner. He looked desperately at Beatrice, panic etched across his features, but she was only focused on maintaining her grip, her smug demeanor wavering. So, as a moment hung heavy in the air, I knew I planted a seed of doubt. The HOA was beginning to crack. The battle was far from over, but this skirmish was a major turning point. We had the momentum now, and I intended to ride it for all it was worth. The question left hanging in the air was whether the HOA would finally buckle under pressure. But I wasn't waiting to find out. They had built their empire on control, but together we were ready to dismantle it, piece by piece. The energy in the air thickened as the crowd rallied behind me, supportive murmurs rising like a chorus. I could see the fear flickering in Donald Snipe's eyes as my neighbors formed a barrier, their frustration palpable. Motivated and clear-headed, I pressed on. We won't be bullied any longer. Snipe opened his mouth, but the words were drowned out by the growing chant from the crowd. No more, no more. The power surged through me like wildfire as I held my phone steady, capturing this pivotal moment. Beatrice, behind Donald, finally lost her composure. This is ridiculous. You're just a bunch of rowdy residents. She stepped forward, trying to regain control, her voice trembling ever so slightly. Rowdy. I shot back, stepping closer, rallying their spirits. This is a community standing up for what's right. You know, this chaos started because you all wanted to dictate how we live our lives. It's about community standards. Beatrice spat, desperation leaking through a polished facade. The crowd didn't buy it. They shifted restlessly at her words, and I could see the moment their trust began to shift away from the HOA. Before I could press my advantage, a thud resounded from behind us. The bulldozer's driver had climbed back into his seat, and a low rumble started as he revved the engine again. What are you doing? I shouted, my heart racing. I just want to get out of here, he yelled back, his eyes wide. This situation is way over my head. With a roar of determination, I yelled, no one is going to silence us. If they think they can trample our rights, they are sorely mistaken. At that moment, I saw Mr. Walker, the previous landowner, standing at the edge of the crowd, an expression of approval on his face. Hey, Jesse, show them what you're made of, he shouted, his voice punctuating the tension in the air. With the crowd behind me and the bulldozer revving, I felt the buzz of adrenaline. You think you can intimidate me with your machinery? I directed my voice toward Donald and Beatrice, who seemed trapped between panic and anger, their facade crumbling. We won't let you push us off our land. I called out to my neighbors, and the reaction swelled, people cheering and clapping. Suddenly, voices bubbled over from the back. "Let's take back what's ours," someone yelled. I turned around to see Sheriff Daniels making his way through the throngs, his expression grim but determined. "Sheriff," I called, urgency spilling into my tone. "You need to intervene before things escalate even further." Daniels nodded, authority radiating off him as he stepped up. "Everybody, calm down. Let's not lose control here." He looked at Snipe, his jaw tightening. "What's going on?" Nothing, Sheriff," Snipe stammered, trying to maintain his air of authority. "Just minor community disagreements." "Minor?" Daniels narrowed his eyes, assessing the chaos surrounding him. "It looks like a full-blown mutiny to me." He turned to the bulldozer driver. "You need to turn that thing off, now." The driver hesitated, sweat beading down his face. "But I was told to." "Shut it down." Daniels snapped, and the driver obeyed. The monstrous engine hushed, leaving only the sound of our collective anxiety echoing through the air. With the bulldozer finally silent, I took a step forward, feeling the current shift. We deserve to be heard. I shouted, seizing the moment. "We have rights, dreams, and homes, and they won't take that away from us." "Plus, they're illegal," shouted a voice from the crowd. Cheers erupted. It was igniting a fire within our rebellion. Snipe's mouth twitched in anger, and he shot me a look that promised retaliation. "You can't keep this up, Ray. We'll find a way to take back control." "Why don't you tell that to the authorities?" I shot back, pointing my phone toward his face, capturing the moment. "Everyone is going to see how obsessed you are with power." "We will appeal your actions." Beatrice interjected, voice shaking. "Do what you need to do, but I won't stop, nor will the people behind me." I motioned toward the crowd, unity shining through in their fierce expressions. "Fine. You think you can hold this ground?" Snipe snarled. "I'll ensure you'll be the nuisance that this community will never forget." The tension hung thick as defeat flickered behind his bravado. I knew I had them rattled, and it lit a fire deep within me. They were scared. I could feel it. But suddenly, I felt a shift in the air. In the distance, police sirens wailed, growing louder. "Here come the cavalry," I muttered under my breath, a spark of hope igniting. I had called for backup. "Looks like the law is on our side," I shouted triumphantly, adding fuel to the already tense atmosphere. A flicker of panic passed through Snipe's eyes. His threats felt hollow now. As the police cars pulled in, I turned and addressed the crowd, now pulsing with energy. "Let's show them our voices can be louder than any fence they build. Let's prove to them we won't be silenced." With renewed ferocity, the crowd roared in agreement. Encouraged, I turned to the deputies stepping out of the car. "Sheriff Daniels and I will deal with this," I said, my tone resolute. As the deputy approached to assess the situation, I knew this was a turning point. The balance of power hung precariously and would tip in our favor. We needed to maintain this momentum. "Mr. Ray, what's happening here?" the deputy asked, scanning the chaos unfolding around him. "Illegal construction and harassment. Officer, they are trying to commandeer my land." I gestured around us. "And now they are making demands that endanger the community." The officer nodded, taking notes as he glanced between me and Snipe. "And what about the bulldozer?" "Shut it down," I declared, glancing back at the driver, who was now visibly sweating. With the law present, I felt a surge of confidence. The crowd grew restless and impatient as we listened to the unfolding drama, their support tangible. But inside, a storm brewed. This was just a skirmish, not the war. We had a tactic, the press, the sheriff, all necessary allies. But as I confronted Snipe with a fearless resolve, I spotted something in the corner of my vision, a shadow moving beyond the crowd. A figure slipped into view through the trees along the edge of my property, quietly observing. My stomach clenched as I felt a sense of dread. I had to see who or what was spilling from the darkness. Snipe's expression shifted as he noticed it too, but we both stayed focused on the impending showdown unfolding in front of us. The figure stepped closer. A moment's hesitation followed by recognition hit me like a freight train. My pulse quickened. Whoever it was had knowledge of my situation. This wasn't over yet. The next twist could change everything. Everything's about to change, I whispered, determination coursing through my veins as the fight intensified, unaware that the real battle was yet to unfold. I felt a shiver run down my spine as the figure stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face. Clara. Her expression was a mix of fear and determination. "Jesse!" she shouted, cutting through the tension like a bolt of lightning. "You need to listen." "What are you doing here, Clara?" I shot back, my voice a blend of surprise and confusion. Everyone's attention shifted to her, the crowd murmuring restlessly. "I have proof. Something you need to see." Her eyes darted toward the HOA members, particularly toward Snipe and Beatrice, who were visibly unsettled by her sudden appearance. "Proof of what?" I pressed, emboldened by the crowd's anticipation. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "The HOA is involved in something bigger. Illegal land deals, shady property sales. I got documentation that could take them down." A surge of hope washed through me. This was a leverage we needed. "Show me." I aged, stepping closer as I felt the murmur of the crowd heat up with excitement. Clara pulled out a folder from her bag, its corners worn and pages creased. She flipped it open and began to reveal page after page of documents, contracts, emails, photographs of clandestine meetings. "This is why they wanted to push you out, Jesse. They thought if they could silence you, they'd keep this hidden." Snipe's expression twisted into a snarl. "What are you doing, Clara? You're making a mistake." He took a step forward, but the crowd closed ranks, protectively shielding her. "Shut up, Donald." I challenged, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "This is bigger than just me. You've been running a corrupt operation, and your time is up." Sheriff Daniels stepped closer, the tension between him and Snipe palpable. "Let's see what you've got, Miss Clara," he said, his tone serious, casting a disapproving glance at the HOA representatives. "If there's evidence of wrongdoing, we'll take it from there." The crowd's murmur turned into a wave of whispers, growing louder, the energy swirling as I realized the stakes were higher than I had anticipated. "There's also a meeting scheduled for next week," Clara continued, flipping to another page. "They plan to discuss revitalization of Pinebrook Meadows, which is just code for more land grabs and enforcement of ridiculous regulations." The faces of Snipe and Beatrice shifted. There was a crack in their armor, and I seized the moment. All this time, they've tried to keep us divided. Instead, we can expose them for the frauds they are. Just as I noticed the nods of approval from my neighbors, a tremendous crash echoed from behind. The bulldozer's driver, in a panic, had slipped and knocked over a wooden fence post, sending it crashing to the ground, a symbol of the destruction they threatened. A new wave of anger surged through me as the crowd gasped. "Look at what they've caused." I shouted, waving my hands dramatically. "Destruction over land. These people don't care about us." "Stop this." Snipe barked. Desperation seeped into his voice as his earlier bravado began evaporating in front of our eyes. "You don't understand what you're meddling in." "On the contrary," I yelled back, breaking through the noise as I held Clara's documents high. "We're just getting started." Sheriff Daniels stepped forward, looking between Snipe and Clara. "If what she says is true, we need to investigate these claims further. This is serious. You could all be looking at charges that go far beyond a simple neighborhood dispute. But we're just following the bylaws." Beatrice shouted, her voice trembling. "This is a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Clara echoed incredulously. "You call cozying up to developers and kicking out residents a misunderstanding? You think we're falling for your lies." The anxiety in the air was palpable. The tide had turned. I could see confusion blooming rapidly on the faces of the gathered homeowners as they grasped the implications of Clara's evidence. The spark ignited a wildfire of dissent against the HOA leadership. And just as I sensed we were on the brink of a breakthrough, a loud explosion erupted from the area behind the crowd. A shockwave rippled through the assembly, causing people to stagger backward. Instantly, chaos ensued. What was that? I yelled, glancing back at the source of the commotion. Smoke billowed into the air, and panic spread as people screamed and scrambled to retreat from the danger. Amid the turmoil, Snipe caught my eye, fear etched across his face. This wasn't supposed to happen, he shouted, clutching at his tie. The precarious balance we fought so hard to maintain was teetering. The bulldozer, now out of control, had struck a power cable, cutting the electricity. The silence of confusion was replaced by the hum of the unseen, the sound of money, power, and deceit crumbling. It was as if the very foundation of the HOA's operations was laid bare in front of us. Stay together, I cried, rallying the crowd despite the chaos. We can't let them divide us now. But panic erupted as a figure emerged from the smoke. Another person, but this one wasn't familiar. Clad in a dark jacket, the expression was obscured, and my heart pounded with fear and anticipation. "Get back!" someone shouted, pushing through the crowd. But Clara stepped forward instead, her eyes bright with recognition. "No! Wait!" The figure paused, pulling back their hood, revealing a familiar face, Anna, the journalist from the local paper. "I came to get the story," she exclaimed breathlessly, holding up a camera, recording everything. "It's about time people learn the truth." In that moment, the crowd shifted again, uncertainty mingling with a sensation of opportunity. I was reminded of my earlier resolve. We have the evidence, and the world is watching. I shouted, not hiding my triumph. You can't smother the truth. With the bulldozer's chaos playing in the background, Anna captured Clara's folder as a camera's flashes lit up the smog, exposing the grim reality of the HOA. People had gathered. They stood, shadows against the light, ready to rise against the tyranny of fear. As Snipe and Beatrice faltered in their bravado, I felt the last piece of the puzzle click into place. "We are more than your bylaws, more than your niceties," I proclaimed. "Together, we are an unstoppable force." But the moment felt precarious, fragile, as a figure of authority in the area, the law enforcement, stood poised between the HOA representatives and the residents. Just as I thought we might tip the balance entirely, Snipe attempted one last gasp of a threat. "If you go public with this, I swear there will be consequences," he sneered, that familiar edge creeping back into his voice. "Go ahead and try," Clara retorted, her resolve shining, her stance firm. "You'll only expose yourselves further." The crowd roared in approval, fueled by Clara's message. "Fight alongside us." I called out, "And let's dismantle this kingdom built on greed. Let's bring it down and rise together." Just then, out of the chaos, Sheriff Daniels stepped forward commanding respect and authority. "Let's put an end to all of this right now." This wasn't just a battle for land. It was a stand against control, oppression, and the facade of power that had intruded on our lives. And in that chaos, we found clarity. As the smoke began to clear, I knew we had breached something monumental. Together, we could alter the very course of our town. The balance had shifted entirely, and the realization hit me like an electric shock. As Clara's truth unraveled in the eyes of everyone present, it became clear our community was no longer just a mere conglomeration of houses, but a force, a living testament to what unity could achieve when faced with the shadows of greed. "You'll remember today," I stated with a commanding voice, "for it's not just our homes at stake, but our very essence as a community. Mark it, the days of being silenced are over." The echoes of my declaration sparked hope, and as I looked around, I realized we weren't just standing against the HOA anymore. We were lighting the fuse of revolution. The mission was no longer about property. It was about justice, about taking back our power, and in that defining moment, the climax thrummed in the air. A new dawn was rising on Pine Brook Meadows, and nothing could stop us now.